Property Investing Insights, your authority on all things property investing, finance and wealth creation with Right Property Group.
G'day, how you going? Phil Tarrant, co-host, Property Investing Insights. How you going? I'm with Reshmi and Victor Kumar from the Right Property Group. How you going? Welcome back to the studio. It's been a little while.
Been a while, mate. And I can see that you didn't give me coffee this time around because last time I spilled coffee all over your really chic
fancy table. Yeah. Well, do not worry. It's not the worst thing that's been spilt on it. It's sometimes people do podcasts with beers and other things. So allegedly it makes people a little bit more entertaining and animated when they're got a few beers in them. But we record on a Tuesday morning, so there'll be none of that stupidity and skullduggery. But how's what was going on over the weekend? Do you guys go out and look at properties anymore on weekends? You're long beyond that?
Look, I know there's always, in the property industry, the deal's on when it's on, right? So when you get the call from the agent to say, hey, you got to be here, and these are agents that I've had, decades of relationship with, you drop everything and go, right? So part of our Saturday routine is that we lounge around with coffee, the newspapers, the iPads, and we chit-chat, and all of a sudden I'm gone. And then Reshmi does what she wants to do on that Saturday.
So it happens quite regularly? You'll just be out?
Yeah. I think Saturdays are our property discussion days, pretty much, like looking at our portfolio and what else we need to do and what's out there, and then we dabble a bit into the waterfront homes and, the dreamy side of things, and so all sorts.
So do you ever sit there and just go, I just don't want to go out and look at a property? Like, I just can't be bothered. Someone said to me the equivalent of that would be on a Saturday would be, I don't know, what would be something I really wouldn't want to do. Like, I just don't know. There'd be parts of my job that go, I don't want to do that.
It's different to how it used to be, definitely.
Yeah. Before it was like any phone call, I'm out. Now I'm very discerning. We find out the full details of the property and we say yes or no on the phone. And if it's a yes, then I'm out.
So this is a property you've never seen before. You get a phone call from an agent. It might be, hey, look, this has got to move today. If you see it, you like it, you can buy it. It can be this when you get deals right. So talk me through from you setting off from your home. Say, let's make it easy. Say the property's in the western suburbs of Sydney. Whether or not I'm buying there, it's irrelevant. But tell me what you do. You jump in your car and you start driving there. Are you thinking about the property on the way to what do you look at online first and sort of get a sense for it? Are you thinking of a price while you're driving there?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do.
Will you talk about the Mount Warrigal or Swine?
Yeah. So we drill a story back to one of the properties in our portfolio, right? So this is a property in Wollongong where at 10 o'clock I get a phone call from the agent to say, Vic, you got to be here. It's an auction. Very, very sharp reserve. I've just seen the reserve and there's no one here, right? So I belted it down to Wollongong. So that's normally a 45, 1 hour drive from my place. And there we were. There's still two other bidders there, but we were able to get that property. Now this is going back a few years. And this was a site that had potential for multiple dwellings, and we pretty much got it for 3/4 of its price.
Okay. So you'd never seen it before?
Never seen it before.
You hadn't even thought about it? You just got a call from an agent that said, this is happening, no one's coming?
Yes. Yeah.
So did you check it out online and go, this is worth our while?
This is my go-to person. So as I'm driving, she would be at home doing the research or in the car doing the research.
Yeah.
The fortunate thing is that because of our years of experience in property and buying multiple properties, both for ourselves and for our clients, we can discern value really quickly. Then it's a matter of trying to make it fail, right? So, and if there's 3 ifs on it, then we're out, regardless of how good the deal is, right? And then also flagging it with this particular property that, I did my own pest and building report. And it's not something that I would advocate for our clients or someone that's really starting out. You need a professional to go through and make sure you're not buying a lemon. But I've seen enough houses to be able to do that myself.
So did you walk through the property before the...
About 2 minutes worth.
2 minutes worth. And that was your pest and building inspection. You just looked to see how many...
Yep, bang on the walls, make sure there's no falling debris in the wall, which is a telltale sign of termites in the walls. and then checking the bathroom, and actually had the audacity of carrying a rag to plug the drain so that we can flood the shower base and have a really quick look. Now, it's not normally you should take an hour to do that, but if it's a major leak, it'll show up straight away. And then we also factor in a full bathroom renovation, just erring on the side of caution.
So you walk through this property. Is it a well tried and tested? Are you like a radar goes boop, 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 you're looking around and
yes.
Yes. Like, you know what? Do you have a checklist? Like a physical checklist, or it's just a mental that you just go bang bang bang?
Mental
bang,
now
bang.
Used to be physical, because when we first delved into this area of property investing, looking at all these properties, it was very difficult to remember which one was which, and so we started off with our spreadsheets and making sure all the categories were in, and then we try and grab all the details we can into that spreadsheet, and then we decide, okay, which ones work the best, and then we'd go the next step on them. But now it's a matter of, I know this one, I know that one, this one's, sounds like is a goer. So,
Yeah, so now it's just on autopilot.
Yeah, it's on autopilot. And a lot of times I'll just see photos and videos of the property and I'll pick up issues straight away. Issues that perhaps the agent who was doing the video or the person that was doing the video hasn't picked up, right? So it's having a methodical approach to what seems like haphazard approach.
And if you go,
develop the eye, I guess, as you go along. The amount of knowledge you gain, that just then reflects in the actions you take, I guess. So
So can you do a course on this, or it's just experience and time in the seat?
At the end of this podcast, we'll give you details of this great course that we've got.
I'm kidding.
So the courses are great. They can talk about concepts and all these things. You can teach all of that. However, you cannot really teach someone, make them bring that eye out in order to pick what they need to pick to decide that that's the successful property, right? You can do so many courses, but it's that comes from within yourself, and that is someone not someone can teach you that. You gain that with experience.
I guess you can teach the theory, but you can't teach the experience.
You can't teach the experience, and it's a key thing. And people will even do it now. Like, it's not very often. I guess I'm a journalist by trade. Not a very good one. I do most of my journalism talking these days, but I guess the equivalent of what I do, someone can give me a 1,000 words written on a bit of paper, and they'll go, "This is perfect," and I could pull it apart in a heartbeat, grammatically and punctuation and everything, and give it back to them full of red marks and go, "How do you even see that?" I go, "I don't know.
Exactly.
I just do. Can you teach me how to do that?"
Yeah. That's the experience.
Do it 10,000 times,
exactly,
and you'll be able to do it, right?
Yeah.
This is what's the rule of
10,000 hours.
10,000 hours, and it's an important point, because a lot of people try and shortcut it, right? And me personally, using a buyer's agent is shortcutting it, because I don't have the time, energy, and effort to do that, to actually generate the experience where I could put myself toe to toe with a professional that does it. So I'm happy to let it be, but that's my mindset, and that's my philosophy towards investing, is that I'm happy with decision making, but I need to surround myself with the right artifacts and the right processes and a certain level of experience to be able to make my decision making when it comes to property investment speedy and decisive, right? And that's, you probably see that in, not saying I'm a good investor, but you probably see that in some of the best investors, that they are comfortable with their own way of doing things, and if they are able to encapsulate that, understand it, appreciate it, and be comfortable with it as well, because sometimes you might be a bit uncomfortable with the realities of being yourself. You've got to do a lot better in property investment. Yeah,
absolutely. And the key to this is being comfortable making decisions, right? And being comfortable that it could be wrong. And so when we take that approach, we need to look at it from the worst case scenario and go from there, right? And one of my very good friends, and I'll shout out to Bobby over here, he gave me this anecdote of his father teaching him in the early days and mentioning to him that you got to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Yep. And as soon as you grasp that concept, investing is just a process at the end of the day. It's just a series of decisions that you need to make, that you need to shift your paradigm. You need to put away all of your teachings and learnings that you've had to date to then have a change in decision-making process to get a different result.
Yeah, it's this intersection, I think, between experience. If you could map this out, right, it'd be experience meets mindset, and your mindset changes the more experience you have, and therefore,
absolutely,
certain people. I'm very comfortable being uncomfortable. You know, it's where I do my best work, and I deliberately do that because I'm not. You do enough of something, you don't need to be too planned or prepared to do it. Like you're going out quickly looking at it. And some people say, well, how does it happen? You go, well, you just...
Where's the research?
Where's the research? You go, well, I've done millions and millions of hours of research, right? You know, whatever. So this idea of being comfortable, being uncomfortable, you can't just wake up one day as a completely new investor and say, I'm going to be comfortable being uncomfortable. It's not going to work, right? Yeah. So it's a sequence towards the direction of comfort, being uncomfortable, right? Yeah. And you can't manufacture it immediately, right? I don't know. Where would you guys sit on that scale? Pretty much, you've seen most things, right?
Yeah, we have. If there's a mistake that's to be made, we've made them in property, and certainly that makes it really easy to make decisions now, because we know that. Hang on. If it's going pear-shaped, we've gone through that before. So here's what worked, here's what didn't work. And so we just, refer back to the manual, the mental manual, and rehash what we've done before to get ourselves out of trouble.
Yeah. And a lot of property investment is getting yourself into trouble.
Yes, very easy to get into property, right?
And getting yourself into trouble sometimes with property can be a good thing, and everything you do, I guess, adds to the collective scar tissue, right? Yeah. And scar tissue is an important term and a point. The more you do of it, the quicker you can accelerate your experience and your knowledge and your capabilities and probably drive it forward. But what do you say to new investors when they'll be talking about this going, this sounds a bit airy-fairy and, the psychology of investing, all this sort of stuff, it doesn't really matter. It's all about the numbers in a spreadsheet and setting the data and stuff. How do you say to them, Reshmi, you've got to just do this. You need to do an apprenticeship and you can't rush an apprenticeship.
Absolutely. Well, a lot of experience goes in before you can make decisions. So if someone says it's all numbers, and yes, it is all numbers. We've seen many people do the numbers, but if they've not had that experience of decision making, which comes from the experiences of life, like what you've gone through and how you decide whenever you've got to take a step on something, the numbers works, everything works, but then the decision is not there to take that action. And why does someone take that decision to take that action to actually make it happen is based on the experiences of how they came about making decisions in their life about not only property, lots of other things. A lot of life experience goes along, and you train yourself what to look out for, what will work, what won't work, and what is my decision, and what will I be comfortable with if it didn't work or if it worked. And so those apply directly into property. It's the same thing. It's just the product is property, and the end result is far better in terms of your lifestyle that you're creating. So the fear that we all get from that stops us from making those decisions. So the inability to make the decision is what the numbers are there, all of that's there, but the experiences, if you don't have, you cannot easily make those decisions.
Yeah, it's sort of this psychology around investing, how you go about doing it. And I frame a lot of things in business and property investments around, people talk about goals and strategy, and you hear it all the time. I think one of the most important terms, if you want to call it, when it comes to property investing is doctrine, and doctrine is how you do stuff. Yep. And it doesn't get spoken a lot about property investment, and doctrine. It's a term in business, a term in the military. It's how you fight, or it's how you invest, or it's how. So this is how you go about doing it. So if you're going to try and crystallise your doctrine, the doctrine of you personally, which I think cascades out into how you invest for your clients within the right property group, what would it be? How do you invest?
Yeah. Okay. So a lot of people get caught up in, what does the ABS data show? What's the growth in the area? What's the potential doubling effect in the area? What's the population doing? All of those really detailed stuff, right? if you really want to be successful in investing, you need to be able to explain your strategy to a 5-year-old. And if you can't explain it to a 5-year-old in 5-year-old language, then you're just trying to fluff it up and you're getting away from the core of investing. And so long as we address that, it becomes really simple. Yep. Right? Because there's so much information available and there's so much of AI and digital fluff that's around, we tend to make uncomplicated things really complicated by dressing it up.
Yeah, and it's not hard.
No, it's not hard.
It's probably one of the most simplest things.
Yep.
Or it's one of the greatest things in the world, compounding growth, right?
Yes.
I think it was the 8th wonder of the world or something or other. Compounding growth, that is, and I try and, my kids are a little bit younger than yours, but, they don't really understand why you need all these houses.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
They go, well, why do you need all these houses? You go, well, they're not houses, they're investments. And you buy it today and tomorrow it's going to be worth a lot more money, and the difference in that money allows you to do other stuff with it.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
That's property investment.
That's all it is. Yep.
It's all it is. And if you did that really well, there's a lot of detail around that, right? But back to the sort of the psychology of investing, if you're able to embrace that really early on in your property investing career, that don't overcook it. You can't shortcut the system without a huge amount of risk.
Yep.
And risk is the important thing, which runs in parallel with all property investment decision making. So if you're comfortable being uncomfortable, you need to have an applicable risk regime that runs side by side with that.
It does.
And your attitude towards risk will change over time.
Yes.
The more experienced you become.
Yeah, and it does change backwards as well, right? So if I look at my portfolio and our portfolio right now, right, we've become very risk averse because we've got a huge portfolio, and now we don't want to take a unnecessary speculation or risk which would jeopardize everything we've got, right? So as your portfolio matures and becomes more equity heavy, you tend to take less risks. But in the early days, because we
had nothing in the early days.
Yeah, well, I think the biggest curse Australia's got is that we are too middle class.
Yeah.
Right? We are really comfortable where we are. There is no real need for us, perceived need for us to strive a little bit harder. And we're really afraid of losing what we've already got. So we've got the good home, we've got good equity, and we've got a comfortable lifestyle. To throw in the unknown of investment and whether it'll work out or not, because no one can guarantee that it'll work out, right? We can stack everything in our favor, and then we then need to leave everything, dare I say, to chance, right?
Yeah.
And the chance comes both in terms of the ability to hold, what happens in life, the longer time frame to hold, and certainly if you've got everything else right, everything else will work out, right? So they are the two things that you're taking a chance on, right? And once we are able to grasp that, it becomes fairly easy. But as you're starting out, it's the unknown, right? So we then start saying, okay, I want to replace my whole income. I want to get $100,000 in income, or I want to get 5 properties with $1 million equity on each. It's so intangible. So we need to drill it back down to say, okay, what I'm trying to do with this investing, this phase of investing, is I want to try and buy back 1 day of my time, right? And if you make it something as simple as that, everything else falls back into place.
Yeah, and this is goal setting, right? And the best goal setting is not around the mechanics of property investing. It's the outcome that you want.
That's right.
And I don't want to work on Fridays anymore.
Yep.
I don't want to work on Thursdays and Fridays anymore. And I think a lot of people's transition to retirement is probably most property investors cascading down of less time earning a paycheck to facilitate investing and more time living off the work that you've done as a property investor. Yeah. And people got to be comfortable or uncomfortable with that. I think retirement is a really interesting concept. It's only really a relatively new concept. It's only been around for probably about 50 years, right?
Yeah.
Because you used to work to the day you died. Most people didn't live much beyond. If you got to 60, you're doing pretty well, right?
Yeah.
So, and then it's this idea of retirement. I don't know how many people now just hit 65 and they go, that's it. That, you know, my superannuation is set on a way to get the gold. Well, it doesn't happen anymore.
No.
And I think nearly half of all employees now have, or workers in Australia, full-time workers in Australia, if you want to call it that, have non-traditional jobs, as in they don't have a 9-to-5 job. So most people are going to work until...
Yeah, so technically that's retirement, isn't it?
Yeah. So some people say, I'm retired, you know. I saw a stat that only, you know, a handful of percentage of people actually earn more than like $100,000, you know, a year in Australia. It's they talk about this median, but it's completely stacked. So most people are going to have to work forever. Property investment being a great enabler, but to your point, Victor, I think Australians get trapped in the middle class. They actually get trapped in middle class, which is nice house in the suburbs with a mortgage and a nice car, kids in private school, and they might go on one holiday a year, and that's their life. And they're going to be trapped in that for... That's the biggest cohort, right?
Yep.
So they're comfortable there. So what's the need for investing? And so tell me, why? Why would you invest?
Exactly. And again, so great point in the sense that if you're just following the herd and you're not really have a burning desire to get to a goal, you're just following the herd because everyone's investing, I want to invest as well.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why people end up with just the 1 or 2 properties. And the reality of it is you can't retire on 1 or 2 properties unless, you know, you bought a block of 10 units and you paid them off. Yes, you could. But if you haven't got the burning desire, the why to invest, you won't be able to successfully invest. You'll find yourself hurdles along the way. You'll create yourself hurdles along the way.
Yeah. And you must see it in your cohort of clients, there must be an inflection or trigger point for most of them to go, you know, I'm actually uncomfortable now being comfortable. That is the inverse of this idea of trapped in the middle class. So something needs to happen for them to go, this might be good right now, but it's not a long-term proposition. So there's an inflection point, there's a trigger point, there's a catalyst for them to start going, I need to start being uncomfortable again because my level of comfort isn't appropriate moving forward. What's happened up to this point is going to take me to the next point. So what are normally so give me a sense of your client base. Are they mainly middle class people in their 40s and 50s who have gone, something needs to happen, versus 20-year-olds going, I've seen all the things on social media, I want to be a property millionaire?
Yeah, the fortunate thing that because we've been around for quite a while, right? Almost as a buyer's agency and property strategist, we've been around for almost 2 decades now. So we've had generational referrals back into our clientele. So to say that our clientele is just that one cohort is very hard to say, because we've got people that we've helped that are just forklift drivers to CEOs of large corporations, right? Earning $600-700 million as a salary to the $65,000 salary earner. And dare I say that they all have the capacity to reach their goals, provided the goal is not far-flung and far-fetched in the sense that, you know, you're earning $65,000 and you want to buy a $2 million home. It's not going to happen. Right? Not in today's market anyway, but there is a stepping stone. You could get to that eventually. It takes time. And because it takes time, you need to really start earlier rather than later. Most people tend to think of investing when they hit their 50s, 55s.
Is that normally when they start thinking about it?
They start thinking retirement, right? Because it's becoming real. Right? Time pressure.
Just to pick up that point, I find that intriguing because you spend so much time around property investing and property investment. You just think everyone starts a lot younger, but it's typically when someone hits
45 plus,
45 plus, where there's a
thinking.
So talking about mindset and advantages around mindset, if you can actually fast forward to that age and work out you want to start today, like that's probably the most critical point of being a successful property investor. Is when you start.
Yep. Well, if you look at, we talked the other day about the S curve, right? So the sigmoid curve. So with the the x-axis being the time, right? And the y-axis being your entry point, the dollar value entry point.
Yeah.
The longer you live it, the more expensive it becomes to get in. And the shorter your growth spurt, right? If 65 is a magical cutoff date, right? Yeah. I don't believe in the 65 being a magical cutoff date. Could be earlier, could be later, right? Depends on when you start and what capacities you've got and so forth. But the longer you leave it to get started, the more you're going to pay for the same investment, and the shorter your growth spurt is going to be. So if we take that into account, the younger you start, even if you're able to buy one property and then the next time you're able to buy properties, say, 10 years' time, at least you're in the game, right? Yeah. You're riding the wave up like we talked about compounding interest. And then importantly, especially this is what we see with our clientele, is that our next generation of investors are starting to come in. So the parents have invested using our services. They've built their mindset. They've now passed that mindset on. So rather than being a hurdle to their next generation success, they're actually being empowering to the next generation success. So the next generation is actually starting earlier. And compound that with the way information is available and our general acceptance towards property investing in Australia, it is now more and more the younger generations are starting earlier.
It's a really good point, and Reshmi, you probably give some colour around it in that, look, property investment's been happening for years and years and years. However, you're probably now starting to see this, you've been doing this for 2 decades, this generational equity that sits in attitude. So if you have, so maybe 20 years ago, these clients that started working with you would now potentially have 20-plus-year-old kids.
Yes.
One of the greatest gifts their parents can give them is a mindset and an attitude towards investing in property early. That being the earlier you start, the more successful you're going to be. What a gift to be given from your parents.
Absolutely. Remember when in the beginning days of our business, that was not very common to see. We were getting, when we would get the younger clients, their parents may have had investments, but the child, we still come across that, but their children have got no clue. It is changing. So over the years, it's definitely changing. And then what we've also experienced is where the younger generation, when they are wanting to invest, they also on the other side don't want to share anything with the parents because the parents will stop them from doing. So it's again comes back to the mindset. So what parents impart to the children, one can propel them forward. One's children holding back because they know the parents will hold them back. So that's where we are at. There's the two sides.
I reckon there's probably more first generation, as a percentage of the population, there's a lot more first generation investors today than would have been any time in history.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think about my own, we're a group of cousins, right, from all connected with our grandmother and grandfather. And there's, how many said? There's 9 of us, I call it 9 of us. Everyone's a property investor. And all of our parents, you know, our and so our aunties and uncles all grew up in housing commission, right? It's crazy. So there's a whole cohort. So from the third generation from our grandparents post-war living in housing commission and our parents being raised in housing commission, which they eventually bought the property, which was cool. Every single cousin connected in with that is a property investor with multiple properties, and you would know some of these people. It's crazy. Like that's being able to. That's one generation.
Yes.
But everyone is a property investor. It's bonkers. First generation.
There's a lot of knowledge
investors
out there, so people are taking advantage of that knowledge, and there's a lot more investors out there, which brings me to that mindset thing, which is the right on track when the getting together, mingling of investors, so everybody feeds off. There's that environment for them to thrive from, I guess, because before there wasn't anything out, like there were not many investors out there. There's not much to learn from. So,
yeah, and some of these cousins tuning this podcast. If you're tuning in, how you going? But that's mindset, right?
Yes.
But you know, just to pull that apart a little bit, how did that happen? Like maybe because I do a podcast around property investment, they might listen to it.
Yeah.
But they're functionally so. You think about the generation before us. I don't think anyone was a property investor. At least the attitude was buy a house in the suburbs, paid off, and that was success, right? Yeah. Get a couple of holidays, raise kids, and all that sort of stuff. And they've obviously all raised good kids. We're good people,
and look forward to the pension.
Right? Whereas this cohort of as a microcosm, everyone invests in properties, and I think a lot of it is to do with education. The accessibility of knowledge,
and social proof,
but social proof and peer influence, right? Like if you surround yourself with people who are doing good things, you're probably going to end up doing good things. This is the psychology of smart investing.
So maybe we should follow this Tarrant's 9, right? Like the Ocean's 11.
It'd be funny, right? Yeah. It'd be really funny.
Generational thing when you were saying, like, it just made me think of, how our parents and their parents, whatever leftover food was there, they're just the tiniest bit that put it aside. And generations later, we have this tiniest bit, we just chuck it away.
Yeah.
There's that mentality. Right?
It's crazy,
that's a
isn't
shift,
it?
right?
Yeah.
So that's the same.
You'd be first generation investors, wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, speaking about my parents, I mean, we were never comfortable with debt because we came from a farming community, right? So it was always feast and famine. To the point, and I've told this story before, where if my dad and mum were to get a loan from the bank to help with the cash flow on the farm, the bank in Fiji, which was at that time BNZ, Bank of New Zealand, the only air-conditioned building in the entire town, they'd wait downstairs because the loans department was upstairs. They'll wait downstairs to make sure that there's no one downstairs near the cashiers that actually knew them before they'd scoot upstairs to the loans department. Such was the stigma, right? And even to this day...
Is that a family thing or a cultural thing?
Both.
Bit of both.
Both, yeah. Even to this day, I don't talk about debt with my father because he can't comprehend the amount of debt and the number of properties I have, because for him, it's a huge risk still, right? Even though you're riding pretty comfortable, he's still got that set of paradigms in his head about money. So for
his
me,
belief systems
his belief systems are different, right? So I had to change that. I had to break that nexus to then go on to build up my own paradigms. And it was a very steep learning curve. And now my attitude towards that is, okay, how much money do you need to fork out per week to control that debt, which is controlling a far bigger asset that's going to go up in value, compounding.
So you've probably got pretty capable of compartmentalising stuff. Like the way that you structurally frame it that way is a very compartmentalised way of risk management.
I've been accused of being too logical.
but it's true. Like, how much does it cost me to control this, which controls that?
Yep. Yeah, and it's as simple as that, right? We don't need to get into how much is the negative gearing, what is what's the growth, all of those things. If 80% of the boxes are ticked, and provided one of the main boxes being ticked is the affordability of the property back to you, you should do okay. There's no such thing as 100% right in property investing.
Yeah, that's really important. 100% right, and this comes back to decision making and the mindset connected with decision making, and your ability to be better at decision making is going to be intrinsically connected with how many times you've done it and your attitude towards it. So I would say in terms of decision making, what would be if you had to work on that as a skill and a capability, Reshmi, I would say speed is something which is probably pretty important to decision making.
Absolutely. When it comes to property and money, it's you have to be prepared. Decision making in purchasing a property, for that investment side of things, is your decision making has to be quick, but you have to be also very prepared from before. And that helps you with the quick decision making, because if you don't have your finances ready, or you know what you can borrow, at least you've got yourself in that position where this is where my situation, what it looks like. And so that helps you with that fast decision making, because if the numbers work on the property but you've got nothing sorted here in terms of your finance, you cannot still make that decision very quickly, because opportunities, when they come, they go very quickly as well.
So. Yeah. So and making a quick decision is good, but if it's a bad decision, it's bad. So
you've got to cut early and cut hard.
So you have to be prepared, very well prepared, and I guess arm yourself with the right type of knowledge around you, so that helps you with the decision making as well.
I think one of the things that when people are investing and building a portfolio that gives them their lifestyle, they are afraid. They know what they want to do, but they're afraid to pull the trigger. And so we all agree right now it's very hard to hold on to properties because of cash flow issues, right? So harder to get the loans, harder to meet the repayments. Yet we know that the other side of the coin is that when this inability to get loans, so the assessment rates come down, we've got a shortage of supply, we've got an increasing population, and we're not building enough, there is not enough building in the pipeline itself. So the only way the properties are going to, well-selected properties are going to go is up, right? So right now, when everyone's trying to batten down the hatches, should be where you should be striking forward boldly, right? And I'll give you an example of I do portfolio reviews for my staff as well. So all of my staff, they are investors, right? And I won't mention the name of the staff.
I must say they are an absolute dynamic team, because when we have our meetings, the amount of stuff, the knowledge they tell us, like, oh, you know that, oh yeah, there's a lot of those.
I've met a lot of them. They're good operators.
Absolutely.
Because they're investors themselves, right? So one of the reviews I did, the end goal was to get themselves into the North Shore market. Right, and
to live.
Yeah. So that was for the next phase of their life. That was going to be their principal place of residence, and they're saying, "Oh, we'll do that in 3 years' time. We want to get into that home in 3 years' time." And I said, "Well, why not now? Why are you giving yourself the permission to spend more in 3 years' time when you can buy the same thing right now?" And so we did a little bit of a mindset shift over there in the sense that we said, well, let's create the money to help hold on for the next 3 years. We know that the growth is coming. We don't want to miss out on that growth, and we don't want to pay more at that time. So we did a bit of shifting around of thought processes, right? So a really simple thing was that, well, we've got plenty of equity in all of the properties. Let's draw down a little bit of the equity to help buffer for if the rate still continued going up, and let's buffer for the months that our income aren't that high, so we've got major repairs in our portfolio and so forth, so that we've got that safety net there. And if we eroded that bit of equity that we've drawn down, our property portfolio plus the new purchase would grow far higher than what we've eroded. So we've changed the thinking all around, and now we're out there hunting for a home. Right, 3 years ahead of time.
It's pretty cool.
That is cool.
Yeah. Is it going to be their dream home forever home? Are they compromising at all, or it's pretty much would be the property that they would buy in 3 years?
It would be the property they'd buy to live in.
Okay, and that's just how you've. So where do they come up with the 3 years?
It was because the kids would be out of school.
Okay.
Right. So they'll all be out of high school. So then, in inverted commas, we are free.
Yeah.
No such thing. And that's when they're going to move on to their dream home.
So they're going to move kids to schools and
not necessarily. Now we're going to initially have that as an investment. Or Airbnb it in the meantime until the kid's out of school. But what we've done is we've bought it at base level, as opposed to if you talk about the S-curve, we're not halfway up the curve.
So this one gets sort of super tactically, because that would be bought in a personal name, and therefore they'd be as an investment property, and therefore paying land tax on it. Land tax initially on it. So there's a trigger point as soon as you move into that. It's a principal place of residence, as long as it's in your personal name. That stops.
That's true.
Yeah. Okay.
There are structures you can put together, very complicated, that you can actually negate the land tax as well. So, the thought process that, land tax can't be avoided in structures is not quite true.
Really?
But, so you need to get expert advice, right? So we're, in our portfolio, we're at the stage where we're paying big money for some really good taxation advice in readiness for the next 10 years when, in inverted commas, the retirement bit comes in, where all of the portfolios are paid off. and you've got substantial money coming in. Quite a few of the properties are in our personal lives, right? So we need to plan ahead for that. Yet these advisors cost a lot of money, right? So there's one advisor I'm talking to, he's charging $6,800 an hour as his consulting fee.
That's good advice.
It's good money. But but it looks like we'll be spending about 5-6 hours with him planning the transition of one of our properties where we've got a bit of a windfall on that, where it's the development potential, it came forward way ahead of what we anticipated. And so put it in perspective, a property that's bought in for $500K is now worth $6 million to a developer, and we've got offers on the table. Rather than taking the offers blindly, I'm changing my mindset. I'm taking a philosophical approach to this. Okay, how can I mitigate my tax?
Yeah.
And that means spending some money up front to save a whole lot more.
That's a huge capital gains, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and that's the issue, though. You could say it's worth that much to a developer if you were just selling it in an open market. Is it worth $6 million? Well, no.
Probably half that, if not less.
Yeah. Wow. And how long have you had that property?
Bought it in 2018.
Oh, that's pretty good going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just got lucky.
No one was buying in that area at the time, which brings me to the other point when you're investing, right? You don't follow the herd.
No.
Don't follow the herd. I'm not promising you the same returns if you're engaging my services, but,
Can you find me one of them?
Who are you?
I'd like one of them. That'd be nice.
That was purchased for much later. Like we were going to develop it much later when the
Was it rezoned, was it?
It was rezoned. Yeah. Well, they're going to get it rezoned. So it's becoming going to council and getting the whole area as a master plan.
Happy days. Mm-hmm. So you bought it on the basis of that happening?
I bought it based on the numbers. Yeah. And that was the cream on top.
Yeah, if it happened.
If it happened.
So the standalone investment was good, but if that happened, happy days.
Correct.
And that's a mindset thing.
That's a mindset thing. Right?
Yeah.
So, and my approach was always that if I'm not going to develop it, my next generation is going to develop this.
Yeah.
Right? Looks like I won't be developing it because I'm going to de-risk it and sell it down if the money is good enough, provided I can mitigate the capital gains tax to a minimum. You can't avoid paying tax, but you certainly can minimize it.
Yeah, and you got to pay for good advice.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, got to pay for good advice. Well, that's an interesting point. But the sooner you can get into these things and identify these things, the better you're off at it. While I've got you, Victor and Reshmi, what's going on the market? Can you still find places like that? Do they exist?
Yes.
Where do they exist?
They don't exist at 500K.
No.
Right. They probably exist at 1.5 mil now.
Okay.
But that 1.5 mil, you could be telling the same story in 10, 15, 20 years' time.
Yeah.
Right? So we still need to look at it from its own merit, in its standing on its own two legs, and not in terms of speculation.
Yeah. Okay. And that comes down to a lot of energy, work, effort.
And then making a quick decision, a quick yes gets you the opportunity.
So hypothetically, if I come to you and said, Victor, I've got $1.5 million to find, I want you to find me something like that. You'd be able to go out there and get it?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. We need to talk.
Yeah.
We need to talk.
Show me the folding stuff.
Yeah, don't worry. I've got plenty just sitting around lazy, doing nothing.
And that's another thing, right? You've reached a level of your portfolio where you don't really need to do anything more.
No.
But you've got the ability to, and whilst you've got the ability to, you might as well.
Yeah, I feel like I need to do more. I'm sort of at that point now where I'm going, maybe it's not enough, sort it out. But I was looking at the smart property investment portfolio. We should do an update, on that, because we sit with Steve all the time. And it's really funny because that for those people who aren't familiar with it, this is the portfolio we have within smart property investment, which the team over at Right Property Group, Victor and Steve at the time, built for us. And we sold down some of that stuff, but I was looking at just the other day when all the rent statements come in, and some of the trusts are hugely positive now with the assets that sit inside it. We haven't refinanced it, whereas some of them are negative because we've refinanced it and drawn down the dough on it. So it's time to sort of step it up a gear, I think.
Yeah,
we need to do it.
Well, it is the best.
Can you find me some more apartment blocks is what I want.
They're on sale at the moment.
Yeah, are they?
Yeah.
Really? Okay. All right.
It comes back to, when you started, there was a change afoot, right, in the market. And now there's a change afoot, and we know what the change is, right? It's the change in the assessment rate and the shortage of supply and increasing population. So it's ticking all the boxes of a sustained upward run in the market for most markets, except for public sentiment.
Yeah.
Yep. When that changes, and public sentiment changes for one of two things, when you stop talking about inflation, right?
Yeah.
And we stop talking about, or we ease the assessment rate, right? So if you look at the latest news, they were talking about inflation hitting 4% again. End of financial year sales, guys.
Yeah,
right?
come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, people are spending. Well, the point is, I'll be saying people have still got money to spend. The issue you have, though, with fighting inflation through interest rates, it really only impacts mortgage holders and to an extent renters, because
the people that most need it.
But the people who are driving inflation are those without any debt, who have got cash which is performing well, right?
Yeah.
Like they're driving inflation, so it's a real blunt stick.
Yes.
Try and beat inflation by hitting people with mortgages, because that has consequences for real estate. But anyway, we can chat about that, I think, as we sort of come up to the election which looming, which things are changing rapidly. Yeah, it'll be fun and games. But that's really good. So I like catching up with you guys. It's sort of, it's a forced hour for me to actually sort of contemplate and think about property and property investing, because to me it's probably a bad thing. It's more of an afterthought than a positive, proactive thought. And you go through cycles as well where you sort of feel like you go, I'm tapped out at the moment. I'm not tapped out. I'm tapped out in terms of bandwidth. And I would sort of get sick of paying massive interest rate bills and land tax bills and all that sort of stuff. But then you sort of go, something happens, right? There's another catalyst there. You go, stuff it. And I'm already sitting there thinking, I might speak to my broker. And actually, how's your broking business going?
It's going well.
Yeah.
Going really well. And the team at Investify, they're kicking some big goals.
Yeah, great.
And
do they finish the financial year strong?
Very strong.
Yeah,
very
good.
Strong. Yeah, and a lot of resetting of loans as well, as we roll off the 2.5%.
Oh yeah, there's still people are coming off.
Still people coming off 2.5%.
Is that a rude shock for a lot of people? This magical interest rate cliff that was going to decimate property markets.
Yeah. For some, it's a rude shock. For most of them, they're quite prepared, right? Yeah. And as part of our review process with our clientele, we get them well prepared for the change that's going to happen in terms of expenditure. So we pre-plan it, we set aside money, we bring forward a construction to increase the income coming in from the portfolio. So all of those things are fairly dynamic, right? So investing shouldn't be a complacent approach. It's more of a dynamic approach where you're always having a finger on the pulse.
You always have to monitor and manage it well. So
it takes time. I know you do all the heavy lifting in your portfolio. I know that for a fact.
I'm a little bit behind with the last couple of months. So.
But it's good. It's good for people to hear that, though. Like I know you've got a pretty big portfolio. Like it's okay. You've got to be sometimes uncomfortable not being completely organised, right? You say, it doesn't really matter. Like, is it really an issue? No. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's not really an issue, but it just gives me that comfort that I know everything's in order and I know what's coming in and what our plans are, whatever we're going to be doing and what this portfolio looks like. And so we can, make those right decisions, what to cut back on, what to, which renovations to bring forward and all the rest of it.
So you're really active, aren't you, in your portfolio?
Very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so. And it is part of our psyche, become part of our psyche now as well. Our portfolio is an integral part of our relationship as well.
There's three people in your people in your relationship. Victor and Reshmi and your property portfolio.
We said the other day that the things that keep people together, like, or people, how families break, let's say, and it's either money or property or whatever, and that's the thing that keeps us together is the property.
Is Victor there on a Sunday night going, Reshmi, you spend more time with our portfolio than me these days?
There's a lot of work to do. I mean, the portfolio size itself, it needs quite a few hours. I mean, Victor just says, a couple of hours just to look at stuff, but all the work that I do in the background is not talked about. It takes him a few minutes.
He goes, that's fine, good.
Yeah. He just looks at one report, right? And then what about the hours I put in?
Yeah, it's a full-time business. A portfolio of your size would be. And you have support. Do you have support for it, or you need like at least a bookkeeper?
Yes, I've got someone doing that. I've trialed a few different people and all that. So, but I'm quite comfortable where we are at with things. So they handle all the data entries. Entries.
Are they like a property manager? Do you call them a property manager?
No, don't need to be. No. So, because we're managing the property manager, basically. So we need to know what's coming in, what's going out, what's happening, and then we can pick out what's, what they could be doing, so we always have to try and be on top of it, so that not depending on the property manager to say that, okay, this property we think the lease is coming up, and this is what we think you should increase to. But if we don't know that part ourselves, how are we going to say, oh no, not $10, but this is, you need to go up by 20?
Yeah. It's such an important point, and we can sit here and talk about mindsets and being comfortable, being uncomfortable, which is all nice, right? But it comes to the tactical reality of running a portfolio. And just yesterday, I was doing exactly that. And this is what property investment is, right? You're in the trenches. Apartment block that you bought for us up in Lawnton.
Yep.
One of the leases come up maybe earlier this year, and I shifted it to 410, which was a big increase from like 330 or whatever. And then there's two more leases coming up this month, and I was sort of saying, hey, is this all in hand? Sort of, we're moving it to 410. And I was online looking for 2-bedroom apartments with a bathroom and a garage in Lawton and also Petrie, which is next door, as you know. There's nothing there.
Nothing there.
And I sit there just going, is 410 market rent? Like I can't even bench. So if I go, is it? Well, that's what we said we'd move it to. And I go, okay, well, there's some more of these properties coming up for releasing in like 3 or 4 months' time. What do I do it at? Do I do it at 410 because that's what everything else has? Or I've got to be pricing in the fact that, how do you do it? Like, because in Queensland, you can't increase the rent within 12 months, right?
In most
and they've
states,
changed the rules now that it's not the tenant, it's the property now. So my philosophy is, well, they should be, what is market rent what it is at the start of the 12 months or at the end of the 12 months?
Yep.
How do you deal with that?
I try and push it as high as possible ethically. Because you got one shot for 12 months, right? And making sure that, first of all, you don't want to price it out of the affordability of the tenant. Right? And so when you're initially putting the tenant in, you really need to make sure that they are not already redlining the affordability at the rent that you're asking at that point in time. There needs to be at least a 30% variance, ability to absorb 30% then and there. So it gives you that ability to push the rents up, right? Now, I'm also a very big fan of, if it's a good paying, non-problematic tenant, it's okay to be $10, $20 below market at the time, right? So, better the devil you know than the one you don't.
So tenure you should give quite a sense to and reward it, if that's the right terminology for it.
Be also very mindful of various state laws. So, as an example, if a tenant is in a property for 12 years plus in Melbourne, as an example, in Victoria, they have extra rights. Right? So each state has got that. So when you're buying property, make sure you need to make sure that they're on a valid lease to begin with. Otherwise, they get perpetual rights to the property to live in there, still pay rent, but they still live in there. If you miss rates and all that sort of stuff, there is the archaic law where they can actually claim squatters' rights. Right? So there's all these things that people don't talk about. I know it's alarmist, but why leave a chink in the armour?
It's good. See, again, if you want to invest in property, you can't be a passenger.
No, you can't.
Got to get involved, and the bigger your portfolio gets, the more of a